Hi everyone. It is said that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What you might see or hear on this video might be a surprise to you. But I'm here to tell you that Israel's longest serving Prime Minister, Benjamin Natanyahu, has come to the end of the road for his political career. It is known as end of an era and the beginning of another. For the past 4 parliamentary elections held in 2 years in Israel, all failed to produce a leader, except this present one that produced Beneth Naftali as the leading opposition against the ruling prime minister. Whatever might be the goals of everyone might be good for a view, but Benjamin Netanyahu played a long role both domestically and internationally to hold Israel at the limelight. Domestically, he championed every affair that made Israel to remain among the superpowers, whether orally or written. At the same time, internationally, he put Israel on the best spot that I have never been for the past 12 years. Yes, most people know Israel as a pilgrimage center for Christians, but no, it is beyond that. What you will see and hear on this very clip might be a great surprise to you. Things you never knew before that is going on in Israel, politically and otherwise. You will also hear an inaugural speech by Beneth Naftali, the new Israeli Prime Minister. Most Israelis believe he is tested and trusted, but it is left to be seen how far he will go and how much he will achieve for Israelis. Democratically and politically, any sitting leader that stays in office beyond 4 years must be corrupt. Because if you understand politics so well, Benjamin Netanyahu is currently under investigation on corruption charges. For the 12 years he was on a helm of affairs in Israel, a lot of water went under the bridge, but is left to be marked or left to be recorded by those who understand politics. As he is out of office, he is fighting for survival because a total number of judges in Israel really want to put him behind bars just to disgrace him, to make sure he suffers for the rest of his life in jail. But how he gets out of these corrupt charges remains to be seen. Have a look.
Benjamin Netanyahu's decade of dominance is over. He had 12 uninterrupted years as prime minister. Like him or hate him, it is difficult to overlook his influence on Israel. He was a cheerleader, a spokesman, and a war hero for his country. So Netanyahu's exit was never going to be a simple affair. Sunday was his last day as prime minister. The Israeli parliament convened to vote on the new government. Netanyahu sat through the entire proceeding. He had a deep, pensive look on his face. But around him, things descended into chaos. The new Prime Minister, Naftali Beneth, was heckled throughout his speech. There was a lot of name-calling and cursing. In the end, the coalition won the vote, although barely. They managed to get 60 votes. The opposition got 59. The Israeli parliament, called the Knesset, has 120 seats. So with 60 votes, the government has made it by the skin of their teeth. Netanyahu was watching all of this unfold. He got up from his seat, he shook hands with Beneth and joined the opposition ranks. And with that, Israel's longest-serving leader was out of power. He's not planning on retirement, though. At 71 years of age, Benjamin Netanyahu believes he still has some politics left in him. He plans to continue leading the Likud party.
I have a message. I have a message to those who are joyful in Tehran and to those who do as they say in Hezbollah and in Hamas. The opposition in Israel will have a loud and clear voice, and I have another message for them, just as important.
We'll be back soon. We'll be back.
Well, Netanyahu may or may not stage a comeback, but as younger leaders take center stage, one thing is clear: the era of Netanyahu is over. Even if he returns to power, he may not be the towering firebrand leader he once was. So it's time to look back at his legacy, his complicated and polarizing legacy. Netanyahu first came to power in 1996. His campaign was built on rubbishing the Oslo Accords with Palestine. But the weight of office soon took over. Not only did he meet Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat, he signed multiple deals with him. And this angered his nationalist voter base, and they ousted him after 3 years. Netanyahu's second stint as prime minister came in the year 2009. He presided over 3 flare-ups in Gaza: the 2014 war, the 2018 violence, and the 11-day conflict this year. During all these 3 flare-ups, he was accused of war crimes, but it made him more popular among his voters. Netanyahu's biggest impact has been the Arab-Israeli peace deals, what is called the Abraham Accords. 4 Arab nations recognized Israel in 2020: the UAE, Morocco, the Sudan, and Bahrain. It was a diplomatic coup for Netanyahu, and he had Donald Trump to thank for this success. Here's another legacy of Benjamin Netanyahu: a partisan relationship with the United States. In 2012, he courted then presidential candidate, Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney. This was during peak campaign season. In 2015, he went around President Obama's back and addressed the U.S. Congress. Why? Because he was unhappy with the Iran nuclear deal. The trend is clear: Netanyahu would much rather deal with the Republicans in America. The new government realizes this. Foreign Minister Yair Lapid talked about dealing with quote-unquote angry Democrats in the U.S. Netanyahu chose to ignore him. Beneth is seeking to engage with them. So what does he bring to the table? Then Netanyahu and Palestine. He says there was never a Palestinian state. Hence, there is no Israeli occupation. If Netanyahu is far right, Beneth takes it to a whole new level. He has publicly boasted about killing Arabs. In 2018, he advocated a shoot-to-kill policy for children breaching the Gaza border. They were terrorists, he said, not children. So blocking a Palestinian state is his life goal, some say. Does this mean the entire West Bank? Right now, it seems unlikely. Beneth has a wafer-thin majority. His partners are soft on Palestine. So he will most likely toe the Netanyahu line, manage the conflict with no intention of solving it. What about his approach to India? Well, Netanyahu proved to be a key ally for New Delhi. Under him, India's West Asia policy was dehyphenated, which meant that relations with Israel and Palestine were separated. They would stand on their own merit. This will likely continue under Beneth. Prime Minister Modi has already congratulated the new Prime Minister of Israel. Beneth responded with a message of his own. Both leaders talked about deepening the bilateral relationship, so don't expect radical changes in foreign policy. The big difference, though, is on domestic politics. Beneth has a broad alliance behind him, including an Arab party. He's talking about healing the Israeli society, reducing the rift between Jews and Arabs, the hardliners and the...
We are at the start of new days. Hardships. It's not an exaggerated word in this case, but the hardships of establishing the unity government are behind us. And now the people of Israel, every single one, is putting their eyes on us, and the burden of proof is on us. We will work together in partnership and with responsibility in order to mend the rift in the nation and immediately bring back the country to normal functioning after a long period of paralysis and quarrels.
Something Netanyahu never really tried to do. He was happy consolidating his own vote bank. That vote bank still supports him. They still see Netanyahu as their leader. So Beneth has big shoes to fill. He was once considered a protege of Netanyahu. He even served as his chief of staff. There's a sense of respect between the two men. For instance, Beneth does not believe the corruption charges against the former prime minister, now Benjamin Netanyahu. For him, this is about a change of guard, not a change of ideology. That's the issue that Israel will have to reckon with. Much like Trumpism in the US, Netanyahu's brand of politics remains hugely popular whether he's prime minister or not. For the next few years, he will be breathing down the coalition's neck.